Sox fans, welcome back to Hot Takes and Heaters. He is Danny Miller. I am Nick Murawski. This is your MLB-centric podcast for FutureSox. Thank you so much for joining us. Jump in. Spring training on its way here. Cactus League action going on. Games just about every day here leading up to opening day later in March. Danny, you catching some spring training action?
As much as I can take in at the moment. I'm a busy man, and I would like to. Well, you know what? I saw some, but I do have a grievance
Yeah.
to kind of file. It's the same grievance that I have to file year in and year out at this time of the year, and that grievance comes with a question. But what on earth is on TV in the middle of the afternoon on a weekend that we can't get more televised games?
That's an excellent question. Grievance, it's a question. I think maybe 4 or 5 televised games this spring, could be more on the radio. And then if you've got, the MLB network, like today, they had the Dodgers Sox game on, and that was a free game, and you get it on the app. And then there's other little ways here and there. If you're a season ticket holder, you should get the MLB TV for free. So you're listening to all audio, and it's not necessarily Sox audio. You get a lot of the away feed, but I hear you, man, especially on the weekends. There's nothing like just a lazy Sunday afternoon catching some Cactus League action. Is it just a perceived lack of interest, do you think, from fans?
I honestly have been asking this question for years. I think Ian and I have talked about it, in years past, going back to the White Sox Daily and the dugout days. We've been together for a few years, and all these years I asked the same question, and we never really come up with a good answer. I wonder, I implore our listeners to send me something. Hit me up in the chat, hit me up on Twitter, because I still refuse to call it X.
Sure.
Give me something, because I don't really think I've heard a great explanation on why this is, especially when the owner of our favorite baseball team also has a piece of the media company that distributes his games. And I don't understand why we're not getting more of it.
It's got to be an advertising thing. There's got to be a dollars and cents reason. Now during the week, I get it. That might be a tough listen. Now do an encore though. Like they usually do for a day Sox game during the regular season. Put something on in the evening. Everybody's home from work, whatever, and you can catch up on what's been happening. Because now it's like, you get some video, and sure, it's a lot easier with social media to kind of tune in with what's been going on. And it's early still. But as things ramp up and we start getting a better picture of who's going to be on this White Sox team, I think you're going to want to watch. Now, there were some weekend games. Friday it kicked it off against the Cubs. And then there was a game on Saturday. Did you catch that? That was
bits and pieces of it.
Okay.
I did catch bits and pieces. Unfortunately, Saturday was a pretty busy day again for me. Just a lot going on here at the Miller household as of late, which, getting caught up on some things and getting some things in order. And, hopefully over the next few weeks here, things will start to slow down. Actually, I think I've mentioned it before on the show, but I will be out of work shortly. And then shortly after that, I'll be having some knee surgery. So I'm going to have a lot of time on my hands. And White Sox baseball, you guys better look out. If you're listening to the show right now live, or if you're listening on our podcast later, the Danny Miller is going to have a lot of time on his hands and might bombard the world with some just off the wall, crazy White Sox content. So, when I've got the time to do that, I definitely will.
I envision just soon, just you sitting in an armchair, just several lung darts, one after another, watching maybe some tough uh, early April baseball, perhaps.
Yeah. I'm kind of hoping that early April baseball is not going to be the tough part of the season. I think, this is when we're looking at this new defensive culture that the White Sox are putting together, right? And you and I have talked about this a little bit in the past, as well as with Ian. But I think there might be a run where we get maybe a couple of decent months out of this team that it currently as it's constructed, where maybe it's not right off the bat, but some of these guys just come out and they play good defense and they hold some teams to low scoring affairs. And maybe we get a handful of wins out of this stuff. We might have some entertaining baseball to watch. But I think it's when we get into the dog days a little bit is when we start to see that kind of come back down. I think the White Sox are going to be, trade partners come the middle of the season.
Yeah, I wanted to talk a little bit more about that because there's different camps that I've kind of paid attention to in terms of fans on social media, even folks that I've talked to friends, family, Sox fans, and we're making these kind of arguments. You make it for, you make it against in terms of the projections that have been made by the prognosticators, the experts out there that know it
The
all and
experts.
have laid it down. So right now, as we record, Sox are 1-4 in Cactus League play, and you didn't miss too much, Danny, over the weekend. It didn't start well. Some sloppy defense, some little things that you hopefully get figured out quickly, especially by veterans. And I don't know how much stock you want to put into the whole Martin Maldonado. He wasn't fully hustling out of the box, and he had to make a whole apology in front of his team. Pedro with a bunch of comments after that. Uh, Look, I know Pedro wants to start things fresh. I mean, he doesn't want anything from last year hanging around, how he handled himself, how he did things, what he said. But, I'm not too concerned if a 37-year-old, if that's what he is, who's probably number one depth chart right now in terms of catcher, is not sprinting out of the box. I think Sox were down 7 runs in the first game of the spring training. I don't know your thoughts.
No, I think you actually hit it pretty much right on the head there. He is an older catcher. I think he was a guy that's kind of brought into, I hate to use that word again, but to, bring the culture of this team along because he has been one of those guys that has been a clubhouse presence for some other teams, right? Not busting it down the line at his age and being thought of as probably the number one starter on the depth chart. I don't really mind that because we've got to get as many miles as we can out of a 37-year-old who's had some knee and back problems in the past. Can I remind you of a Yasmani Grandal recently? Uh, we don't need guys missing time, right? So I get that you're trying to set the stage for what's to come in the season, and you're trying to get some of these young kids that you're going to bring along to fall into step with the new culture and the new brand of what Pedro was trying to establish last year and didn't seem to get that going. But I mean, let's be realistic here. It is the first, second game. I don't care if you're opening your spring training against the Cubs. If we're going to talk about the first game of spring training is the White Sox World Series, well, forget about it. Like that's not the kind of culture that I want to instill. You know what I mean? Let's get some things rolling in the right direction, but let's not get ourselves injured and hurt, and especially in games where it's late in the game and you're down a bunch. I don't really care.
Yeah, I think I could. I think Pedro's trying to make up a little bit for his lack of control last year, and things got off the rails. He didn't know how to get them back on, and he started throwing Corey Lee and Oscar Colas under the bus instead of probably other guys that he should have. That have a little bit more veteran presence. I don't know if he was making a point to call Martin Maldonado out right away to kind of set things right. I don't know, set some sort of tone. Whatever. If that's what he wants to do, that's what he wants to do. But you talk about maybe some exciting baseball in April, and we for several years have heard from the experts the Sox have got it, especially on paper. Watch out for this team, potentially ALCS, maybe World Series. And of course, I'm going a couple years back now. And the Sox didn't hit those measures. They fell well short.
You don't say.
Yeah. Figured you'd fire up a heater at this point, but there you go. Right.
I mean, the show is called Hot Takes and Heaters. I'm just going to go ahead and let one rip.
I'm getting to know you better. So with a negative spin on the 2024 White Sox right now, and everybody down on them that makes the expert predictions, could there be an opposite effect of that people underestimate what maybe this team could do now that there perhaps is a different culture? Now, there are guys that are fighting for their baseball careers, in this White Sox camp. Like, this could be their last run. It could be a pretty spirited, energetic spring training for them because they know what's at stake. There are some jobs that can be won. Not everything's a foregone conclusion with this roster. And that's exciting to me, which is why you kind of want to watch and pay attention a little bit. It's not just, hey, there's not much going on with this team. Everything's been figured out. That's not the case with this White Sox club. There's a lot of different positions, especially in the bullpen, and with guys like Jesse Schultens going down with Tommy John. We're trying to figure out new arms almost every day of who can be where. Do you think that energy, that type of spirit, that fight, can that continue into the regular season? Or do you feel, I made it, I'm on the club, like I'm a made man, I can take the foot off the gas a little bit? And so that grittiness, that energy of, you're fighting, you're giving it absolutely everything. It's the Hanser Alberto effect. It kind of dies off once the season starts because you rest a little bit.
Yeah, I don't know. I think, I think that kind of plays into what we were just talking about with Martin Maldonado and Pedro kind of going in and saying things, like you need to apologize to your teammates and go out in the media and kind of expressing some displeasure with that type of mentality. And I think he was trying to send the message of, I don't care if you're a veteran or not, I'm going to hold you accountable. And maybe that kind of shows some of the rest of these guys that they're going to be held accountable. But then, just to go on more with your point there and the question, I think as we get into the season, I think that's exactly what they're trying to avoid, right? I think they're trying to kind of set this tone and keep that tone for as long as possible. Now, the prognosticators that you bring up, and the so-called experts, and I feel like you don't really need to be an expert to know that this team is not going to be some massive juggernaut in the AL Central like it was once thought in recent years. I don't know how easy, or how difficult, I should say, maybe it is going to be to maintain that kind of process and that mentality of going out and fighting to play every day when you just can't seem to win. Steve Stone, and I'm sure we're going to get into this a little bit, but Steve Stone made the prediction the other day that the Sox, I think it was like the third or fourth inning of the game was it Saturday or Sunday?
Early.
Yeah. The Sox are going to win 10 more games than last year, right? Which, fine, fantastic. It still doesn't really put big numbers on the board in the W column. I find that Pedro's going to find it difficult to keep the team amped up when you're going through those types of struggles.
Yeah, I that was early. That was an early call by Stone, and he was kind of referencing the defense. Things have changed. They've, come out and got DeYoung and Lopez, and they're trying to get a better up the middle. And there was a lot of references to culture and how things are trying to change. And Pedro has learned from his ways. They're going to be doing this, doing that. And Stone flat out said, I expect, a 10 win, 10 wins better this year, which would put it at 71. Again, nothing to write home, nothing to get excited about at all. And at this type of year, if you're more of the mindset as a fan of numbers don't really matter, records don't matter too much. This is a placeholder year. This is to watch development, see if guys can figure it out that might be on this team moving forward. We're keeping all eyes on Ramos and Montgomery. What's Nastrini got? Leisure, Caro. There's others. And so if that's your mindset as a Sox fan, who cares if they've got 71 wins? I honestly, if they've got 65 wins, but there's been some development and there's been, you could see that there's some change and something is clicked that wasn't there last year. Now you got a few guys, several guys that are either this could be their last hurrah in their contract with the Sox, or they're on a 1-year deal. So that's the other flip of that. Of you could have some great chemistry. Maybe they bring them back, but then you're kind of putting a stop on guys like Ramos and Montgomery. So what does 71 wins really get you? I mean, if it's bad baseball and you get to 71 somehow because you outslug the opponent a few games, during the season, are you going to feel any better? I think from my perspective as a Sox fan, I just want to see a completely better brand of baseball. I don't want to see sloppy play, complacency, just lethargic apathy, just like they almost don't care. The hustling that I have seen down to first, I mean, Colas busting it, Robert's been busting it. I mean, that stuff's fun right now because we didn't see it. Can it carry through the whole spring and into the season? That goes to your point of, is there a drop-off point? Is there okay, you hit your high water mark, 2024 Sox, you bonded, everybody's got the energy, but at the end of the day, it's like, well, the talent kind of, shows and speaks eventually, of course, when you get to the dog days of summer.
Right. Yeah, I agreed 100%. I mean, we've been talking about this pretty much all spring. Just being able to see some entertaining baseball in the fact of, we're not really looking for W's, right? Because we know we're not going to see 90 to 100 wins. We're probably looking more at individual performances. We're looking for some seasons out of some guys that haven't had one in a while. And I don't want to throw out guys like Yohan Moncada or, Aloy, guys who are looking at, you're going to be short-lived here. Unless they have monster breakout seasons, I don't see the White Sox re-signing some of these guys. They're going to want big contracts. But, Luis Robert Jr., I want to see him have that big year. Maybe if Aloy does have, he came out and predicted, it's got to be about a month ago now, that he was going to hit 40 bombs, right? If he does that, I mean, is he a viable DH? And do we maybe want to sign him? Those types of things I'm down to see, but I really don't expect a lot.
That's interesting. I mean, that's really interesting. If you're going forward and you're going to, everybody's on board, he's on board, everybody that, hey, I'm going to be the DH. He is, I don't want to say he's white hot right now. Okay. We're only 5 games in.
Fantastic start.
But 5 for 8, a pair of doubles, 4 RBIs, 7 total bases. I mean, he's hitting the ball in the screws. He blasted one to deep, I think, right center, I believe, against the Dodgers this afternoon. And he's been looking good and comfortable at the plate. So, again, it's early, but with all eyes on guys like him, I want to play 150 with Robert and Moncada. Basically, I want all three of us to play in 95% of the games or whatever that would be. And for him to be kind of swinging the bat like this, we're all just holding our breath. Stay healthy, stay healthy, stay healthy at this point.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, health is always going to be something that we're going to be keeping an eye on. Unfortunately, we don't have the years and years and years where the White Sox were one of the luckiest organizations health wise. It's kind of gone exactly the opposite since our friend Herm Schneider left the organization. I mean, you would think that guy was some kind of shaman doing, he was in the clubhouse like Pedro Serrano with his chickens and hats for bats and whatnot.
And he
You know what
always,
I mean?
Danny, had the largest towel known to man, always draped around his shoulder. It was like a double beach towel, just in case I need a huge
I'm sure
towel.
he had that thing. That towel was probably laced with essential oils and I don't know, sage and all kinds of other stuff to keep the demons away. You know what I mean? Because as soon as he was gone, man, it was like night and day.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, that changes. Whatever type of program that they had with the White Sox, that has changed. It sounds like they finally kind of caught up with maybe the rest of the league. Sox bringing in a dietitian and someone for mental health as well to work with players and staff. All things that the Sox have just been late to the game on. They've been late to the game on a lot of things, and so hopefully things are going in a different direction. I don't know how much credit you give to Getz and others, but that's new. We haven't seen that type of stuff, and if that continues, this is going to take some time. That's why for us to bounce back and think, well, the Sox, even though it's the AL Central, going to get right back in it in 2024. There was a lot of, I think, vetting and figuring out, even though Reinsdorf, with his big comments of, well, we're going to bring Chris Getz in because he knows the organization. He won't have to go through, this process of checking in on everything. If you bring somebody from the outside organization, they're going to have to do their due diligence, or we're already a year behind. If you bring in somebody experienced that knows how to do this job, they know exactly where to go. With growing edges, with problem areas, with success areas, who to talk to. Chris Getz is drinking from a fire hose. So this is going to be a process, even though he's been with the organization. It's going to take some time. It seems like they're really trying to, I don't want to say redo, but reimagine the guts of the organization. And that trickle down is going to be a process. Want to talk about a guy from today's game, Danny. I watched most of this game, Dodgers, White Sox. Of course, Shohei Ohtani's debut with the Dodgers. They threw that up on MLB TV. And my guy, Garrett Crochet, on the hill. And this is a guy we all talked about a couple weeks ago. And I think everybody's kind of scratching their head of a starter. Really? Are they really giving this guy an opportunity to be in the rotation? And, the fact that it's being talked about, I think, well, they've obviously done some of their homework during the offseason. They know what kind of buildup he has done, but he is new to this, terribly new to this. But, boy, he looked good today, Danny. I don't know if you heard anything about that.
Yeah, no, I was unfortunately at work for the better part of that game. Actually, for all of it, I don't even think I was out of work by the time it ended. But I tried to kind of keep up with it. I was outside for a lot of the day, so I couldn't get any kind of radio broadcast or anything. I'm not even sure if it was broadcast ESPN 1000, but my phone was buzzing a lot. I've got my my Twitter notifications.
You got a Crochet
on.
Notification?
Well, all my Twitter notifications, and I did see. I mean, the first thing I saw was that Garrett Crochet strikes out Shohei Ohtani in the first inning with 100-mile-an-hour heater.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, excuse me, a little dry. I got to tell you that, yeah, my humor too sometimes. To see that he hit triple digits in the first inning, in his first start in a White Sox uniform. Now, some folks will say, well, it doesn't really count because it's spring training. It's not his first start. But, let's be honest. He comes out in the first inning and he faces three of the toughest hitters in baseball right off the bat. But to strike out Garrett Crochet, and he's up to triple digits again, which
Yeah.
we have talked about ad nauseum since last year. You and I talked about it with Ian when we had you on our show
Mm-hmm.
when it was White Sox Daily. I think Ian, and wow, that was terrible. You,
Take two. That's
Ian,
right.
myself, and your partner on Good Guys Talk Back, I believe, also talked about this. The fact that he was not able to hit, anything higher than 96 miles an hour, 95, 96, and he throws it straight as an arrow. He's just throwing darts up there that he's getting teed off on. Now we've
Yeah.
got a Garrett Crochet that's hitting triple digits again, and he's got himself another out pitch. And when you're hitting triple digits, that just makes his changeup and his off speed stuff that much better.
Yeah, he was not just throwing today. He was pitching, which is what I like to see. The velocity obviously there, which is exciting. That brings him back to that dangerous element that he had when we first saw him years ago in 2020. But he pitched in effectively to those lefties. He was not afraid to go in. He got a couple of those guys, he sawed them off pretty much without breaking a bat. A little jam shot dribblers in the middle of the infield that were gobbled up by, I think, DeYoung or Lopez. And then he rode the elevator, which I like to talk about as a former pitcher way back when in high school and some college. You're mixing up the eye level. Okay, that's what we've had problems with certain guys, like even Kopech and Giolito at times, where you could throw hard, and there is a confidence maybe. You're just not able to hit spots, move it around, and you're just pumping it in. You got no chance. You absolutely have no chance. They'll sit on that no matter how hard you throw. Garrett Crochet was up and down today, which I loved. He was playing like above the hands. He was going down low in the strike zone. Again, he was an inning and 2/3, so it wasn't an advanced start by any means, but which was expected. I thought he was only going to go an inning, but I like to see that. I think he's definitely purposely working on something. Whatever he was working on, I think he was achieving it because there was success. And just to take that away from today's game, it was a frustrating game, but it's the Dodgers. I think they're 5-0 now in spring training. To take that away, that was exciting.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And the thing about the only real question I have about Garrett Crochet being a starter now that I see he's got that velocity back up, and that velocity was a big question for me coming into this season, but now that it's there, I only have one question that remains, and that is, how many innings can you expect to get out of a guy who went through Tommy John surgery and then only pitched out of a bullpen role? How much, stretching out has he gotten? He could have been working out all off season. That's fine. That's fantastic. But when we're talking about getting up to game speed and being out there on an actual baseball diamond, you as a former pitcher yourself, and I as a former pitcher myself know all well and fine that things are different when you've got an MLB batter in the box and you're being asked to go, you know, minimum. These days, I feel like it's minimum 5 innings. It used to be you want to get 6 or 7, maybe even 8 out of your starter, but we're going back a ways, to get up to that point. But how many innings do you feel like you can get out of Garrett Crochet as a starter and not, have him run into a wall? Like Ian says in the comments here, 75 to 100 is where they run into a wall unless their name is Justin Verlander.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know what to expect. I don't know if he's going to start the season in the rotation or if they move him into the rotation later. I'm not sure what the plan is there, but it's been talked about a lot that he's been working. And
That is difficult for a guy like Garrett Crochet. Quietly, which it might be talked about later in the season, that there is a limit on him. You'd have to imagine they did it with Kopech. After he came back, from his injury, He's going to have dead arm periods. He's going to have endurance issues. I mean, pitchers talked about it last year, with the new rules in place. Veteran pitchers were like, whoa, it's going to take me a while to get, acclimated to the speed of the game. And for a guy like Garrett Crochet that hasn't been in that role, he's going to have that going on. Plus, he's going to have kind of just getting his body used to that, the pacing and then there's the velocity question of, is he just jacked right now, emotion, and he's running on adrenaline? It was against the Dodgers, and is he going to come down from that? How is he going to feel health-wise, after logging some of these innings as spring training goes on? I mean, there's a lot to factor in. So, yeah, I mean, it's kind of an overreaction to already start drooling and thinking of him, in the rotation for sure. I just like what I saw. I like what I saw from him and what he was trying to do in just that snapshot,
It's hard
and I
not
think
to drool, though. It's
oh,
hard not to.
absolutely, because I think for him too, how great is that for the confidence, right? He gets to walk away from this, and he's going to reflect on this, tonight, tomorrow. It's like, wow, I went toe to toe with one of the greatest baseball players right now. Granted, his first game and everything, but Shohei hit a home run. Okay, he does. There's no rust on Ohtani. He's a super freak. He's unbelievable. But Crochet should take away some confidence. And I think Grifol got him out when he got him out to leave that good taste in his mouth of, hey, this was a good outing for you, kid. This is something to build on. And this game is so mental that's helpful moving forward.
Yeah, 100%. Leave him on a high note. Leave him feeling good about himself. And, like I said earlier on, to go out there and face maybe the most potent lineup in Major League Baseball right now, and to face three of the best hitters in baseball back to back to back in the first inning, and come out of that unscathed for the most part, I'd say it's pretty fantastic. You're gonna leave on a high note, and I think that just does nothing but boost his confidence. But
yeah,
just going back to you saying, drooling over, results this early on, I get that. I get that it's not something we want to do. It's not something that you can expect day in and day out. We hope for it. You hope that you get those kind of results, on a much larger scale. We get a larger sample size going here. You hope that trend continues down the line, right?
And that was
But
Carlos Rodon a couple of years ago.
right,
We were all
absolutely,
kind of
100%. Great
waiting,
comp.
and then of course he fell off towards the end of that season. I think it was just it got to him, man. The endurance. He was kind of in uncharted territory, and but he carried that pitching staff for a while. I mean, it was like we were waiting for that bubble to burst, and that's happened before with rotations, where wow, where'd this guy come from? Or this guy all of a sudden has figured it out, and we're all waiting. When's the drop off? And there is no drop off.
Well, maybe that's the Bannister effect.
I've been wondering when we'd see a Bannister effect. It could be. Grifol has talked about how amazing some of the pitch grips and mechanics he's seen so early in camp are. So we shouldn't laugh about that. Maybe
guys are dialed in. They're ready to go with their new pitch grips. Pitch grips look great.
Yeah. So Pete, speaking of pitching, there was a transaction today here
we are,
at Danny Miller. This is from MLB Trade Rumors. White Sox officially announced their previously reported trade with the Cubs, acquiring left-hander Bailey Horn to open a spot for Horn on their 40-man roster. They have moved, of course, Jesse Schultens to the 60-day injured list. He's going to have Tommy John. And the Sox sent to the Cubs Matthew Thompson. I'm assuming you and Ian have talked about not only Bailey Horn, but also Matthew Thompson over the years for White Sox Daily. What were your reactions when you heard about this transaction?
Well, first of all, I was wondering why. It didn't come out until later. I mean, honestly, you're trading a prospect that's struggled a bit for another prospect that struggled a bit. Neither one of them has really made neither one of them made the impact that they kind of hoped for, when they were drafted. The reunion with Bailey Horn, sure, fine. It's great. He's not going to crack the top 30 on anybody's list in the White Sox organization. But really the question was why. And then we found out
Yeah.
shortly after. And that was
Yeah.
to make room. If originally it was to make what we thought was to make room for, Cody Bellinger to be signed for the Cubs. They had to open up a roster spot. But it turns out the White Sox had to open up a roster spot too.
Yeah. What were your thoughts on Matthew Thompson? Is it kind of a lateral trade? Is it you just, what's the point?
Well, Matt Thompson, he's been in the system for a few years now. And it just never worked out. There was a time when
I've heard that before with certain
yeah,
Sox
right.
prospects.
Well, I mean, they were all kind of hyped up. Him, Dahlquist, and Jared Kelly were all kind of hyped to be, the next rising stars to come through the system, and all three of them have kind of struggled to get going. Shockingly enough, Ian and I didn't talk much about Bailey Horn ever. So, it wasn't that there wasn't expectations for him. I just don't think that he was on the same level of expectations of any of those other three guys. So when you see that the Cubs are taking Matt Thompson and giving us Bailey Horn back, it's one of those things that I'm not mad about it, because I know the guy just had high expectations and he just failed to meet them. And I'm not poo-pooing on the guy. He was thrown into a situation where he basically dominated his entire life, and now he's got to play against better talent. And, I think he kind of plateaued.
Yeah.
It's
Bailey Horn is just it's a fun name to say,
it is. And, if he can fix command issues, he could be somebody, but it's something they've been working on for years, and it's never materialized for him either.
Speaking of fun names to say, we got our first taste of John Schriffen, the play-by-play man for the Chicago White Sox, the man in charge. He called a couple games Friday and Saturday. I don't know if you caught any of the audio or any of the back and forth between him and Stone.
I did, actually. And, like we spoke about a few weeks ago, my only background on him was watching highlight videos, right? I went back and looked on YouTube and Twitter and found some video of him. And unfortunately, when you do that, you kind of come up with highlight reel calls, right? You get a lot of football that he did. And those plays, those highlight type plays, probably pretty easy for most sports announcers to get hyped up and get rolling and sound good. Obviously some do it better than others, but he sounded great in those clips. But what I heard from him so far in Sox Spring is he actually works well with Steve, which Steve Stone's going to raise anybody's game. I think he's just that good. But I really like John. I think he made some really good calls. He made some fun calls. We had the diving catch the other day that I heard of, a blurb on. I didn't get a chance to see it, but I heard him get a little hype for that. And I heard another home run shot call that was pretty good. So, early on, is he perfect? No. But I think, just as you and I are going to take some time to gel, here we were afforded that opportunity having Ian on with us before. We're both pretty comfortable with him, but I think good things can come from him being in the box with Steve. He's not Jason, but
no, and I think that's going to be the problem, and that was Benetti's problem when he took over Hawk. Of course, Hawk kind of fell off over the last couple of years of his run, and there was an icy relationship between Stone and himself. But I grew up listening to Pachorik and Hawk, and that was just the soundtrack of my summers. Rooney and Farmer in the car when we were going anywhere on the
great
radio.
Combo. Wimpy, like you bring up, he was.
You're comparing the current to the previous, and Benetti, he had his own kind of thing right? He had his own. He was different. He had his own way of doing things. He had his own kind of personality, how he wanted to run a game. And he obviously had a lot of other stuff going on. He's a professional broadcaster. I thought he got along with Stone pretty well. I thought he brought the best out of Stone, something that wasn't happening with Hawk towards the later years there. Um, so yeah, it's going to take some time with Schriffen. I mean, the Sox hired, in my mind, a professional broadcaster, and that's what he sounds like right now. I mean, to react anymore is just an extreme overreaction, but that's what we're doing, right? Just to talk about him at all after a couple games is an overreaction, but that's all we've got. Uh, I think he's going to have to. I want him to just be a little bit more in tune to just like White Sox history, which is going to take time. It's going to take time for me to listen to him and feel like this is like second nature talking about the White Sox, and he can compare maybe other players or other eras or different things that have happened throughout the history, just like a second language. That's going to take time. And that's like just me as a fan, what I like, out of hearing somebody in the booth. Hawk lived it, right? Like Hawk was around for every big thing for many, many years. Benetti grew up a Sox fan. Schriffen's kind of brand new to Chicago and the Sox altogether. So uh, yeah, I gotta wait. He'll get better, but I think to your point, what we can hope for right now is that there's just chemistry between Schriffen and Stone, and they
Right.
both, try to help each other out, make each other better, and what a great guy to have, I think, in the booth when you have got young pitchers, which the Sox do, is Steve Stone. I mean, whatever you think about him on social media, I mean, he is a great listen when it comes to pitching. And I hope
Absolutely.
Schriffen taps into that with all the arms that we're going to see this spring and beyond.
100%. Steve Stone might as well have a crystal ball up there more than half the time. I mean, you listen to the guy, he's telling you what the next pitch is going to be. Now, part of that comes from being, a former pitcher himself, but also comes from being a student of the game. He's kept up with all the changes that have been made out throughout, time. Steve Stone might be a little bit long in the tooth, but continues to change and evolve with the game. And if John Schriffen can pick up any of that from him, I think we might have ourselves a decent combo. But that remains to be seen, right?
Yeah, it's terribly early, but we got a taste of it over the first couple games, and Friday, of course, was absolutely rough against the Cubs. But I didn't mind the broadcast. It's going to take me just a little bit of time. And honestly, I was around Hawk for so long, and I just loved Hawk. I loved him because he he emulated, I think, how like a lot of fans felt. Like he was angry, he was pissed. There were quiet,
He was a
silent
definite
moments.
homer.
I mean, he wasn't polished. Yeah. And I like that. And when you're listening to your home team, you want somebody in your corner,
Right.
and he just had that emotion and that feeling, and he went
Juki.
together so well with Pachorik. And then Benetti, just a professional broadcaster, but he brought a lighter side to it. He had some quirks, and I think he brought some fun out of Steve Stone. I think he brought some youth out of Steve Stone. And so we'll see how this goes. Hopefully, again, they just are getting along, and they like each other, because it'll show through a
Well,
broadcast.
listen, this is one more reason why I say, why aren't we broadcasting more games?
Yeah.
Why don't we have the guys in the booth working together more? It's spring training for them too, especially when you've got a new pairing.
Yeah.
But I won't beat that horse.
And so many ways to do it. I feel like there's so many opportunities, and everybody's
Yeah,
looking
all
for
these streaming
content, and
services and the
yeah,
way that baseball is broadcast out there in so many different ways now. Like we should have more than 5 televised games.
and you might say, look, I'm just not gonna watch it. I'm not gonna invest. But if it's on in the evening as an encore, I think you'll tune in. And if you just don't know this team, that I'm watching this team on Friday and Saturday, I'm like, who are these guys? I mean, you read up on it, and then there's been enough articles and what have you on kind of like some of the offseason developments. And I try to follow this team as close as I absolutely can. And I know you do as well, and so many others. But still, there's something to match a name to a face and everything like that. This is the year where I would like to watch more games because there's so many question marks out there.
Yeah, agreed, 100%. And I do want to address a question in the chat. By the way, guys, thank you for really rolling. The chat's been rolling tonight, almost to the point where we can't keep up without getting off topic. So I apologize for us not getting more involved there, but I do want to address this one question by Juki Holic. He says us Royals fans spring train with the Rangers, excuse me. And was asked if that was normal. Is there a stadium that Chicago Sox share in spring training? And the answer to that is yes. We share a facility with the team they played against this afternoon, the Los Angeles Dodgers. So Camelback Ranch is a 2-team facility.
Yeah, it's a beautiful facility. I think I'll be out there in a couple weeks actually. Seeing some Tim Hill action and Mike Moustakas. By the way, speaking of Mike Moustakas, Danny, John Schriffen just about lost his mind when Mike Moustakas made a over-the-shoulder catch. I believe it was FutureSox that tweeted it out. I saw the video. He made an over-the-shoulder catch running towards right field in foul territory. And Schriffen, man, don't tell him it's just spring training. I mean, he opened up. The excitement meter was off the charts.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I was saying I feel like he's going to be okay because as it was again pointed out in our chat, the hosts always seem to show their love for the White Sox, whether they've been here for forever or they're brand new. And hearing that call was something for sure.
I don't know if you've caught anything from Ken Rosenthal just recently, maybe today, a couple days ago, but from what he is talking about in terms of White Sox camp, that there's positive vibes going around.
I did catch that.
There's some excitement, and I've seen some arguments on social media. I've seen some folks really starting to talk themselves into already, and I'm not telling anybody how to fan, man. That's point number one. You fan how you want to fan, and I have not seen anything yet to get me at all thinking of like, well, this team could be hanging around in by the deadline or anything like that. But I have seen some conversation of, well, if this goes and this goes, and you never know. The positive vibes thing is wonderful, of course. You want that, but it's the beginning of spring training, Danny. It's like you'd expect positive vibes.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's like you're in that honeymoon phase right now where baseball is back. We get to play a child's game in beautiful weather, and there's guys that are in new uniforms, change the scenery.
New uniforms
going on.
New uniforms for the whole league.
Yes, right. That's right.
It was a big topic here recently.
Oh man.
Yeah, there's a handful of guys out there that they needed some pixelated screens to go out to go out on the field up there. Woof. Those pants are something, huh?
Yeah, those are. I was telling Pat on Good Guys Talk Back. Those are the, those pants you'd go into like Sport Mart or Sports Authority or something years ago, and you're looking to like you've got like a beer league softball team or something, or you're just looking for like some baseball pants, and you've got those almost transparent with the drawstring that you got to just don on, and those pants are not good. The lettering. I'm a jersey guy, but I don't have a lot of like stitched name jerseys. I've got two. I've got a Canerico and I've got a Burley with the big
is my favorite.
Letters. I had those made at Grandstand several years ago, which is an outstanding place to get your jerseys. They do fine work. These just the look is not good. And it sounds like there's a bit of an uproar too with players. So it's not just a fan thing.
Yeah. I mean, the MLBPA, the Players Union, came out and said like, hey, we're going to file an official protest on this stuff. Like, you guys need to get this fixed and figured out before the regular season starts, because this is trash. I mean, some of those pants are wafer thin for those of you who might get that reference, but yeah,
Yeah, I think someone
they're
mentioned
paper thin.
during some of those drizzle games, those rain games, even like when it's getting really hot, and then G. Lito used to sweat through his jersey just about the first or second inning. Uh, it's not going to leave a lot to the imagination in those new pants and tops.
Yeah, no, I mean, I'm waiting for the moment where somebody goes to like steal second base and slides and just shreds those pants and nothing, looking like Fred Flintstone out there. You know what I mean? Like it's not going to be a good look. But yeah, I don't know. We were getting a little carried away on the uniform thing. I would like to go back, kind of what you were talking about, and guys, and the vibe, and
Yeah.
guys being, like you said, guys in new uniforms, not the paper thin uniforms, but guys switching teams and finding new homes. And it is the first, few weeks where these guys are actually getting to see each other as full squad. Even players, teammates that have been playing together for a few years. Some of these guys may not have seen each other over the winter. You're getting everybody together. In the White Sox situation, there are new members of staff, not just coaches and heads of departments like Bannister and guys of that nature, Josh Barfield. But we've heard reports that the Sox have just added numbers to their staffs, behind the scenes, guys that can get more one-on-one time and not be ignored during spring training, where you've got all your coaches working with the major league team while your minor leagues guys don't even start until the middle of the afternoon because, well, we just don't have anybody to work with you right now because everybody's working with the MLB club and the 40 man. Uh, you know, those are all positive things, and it's easy to have that positive vibe, like you're saying. Again, there's going to be a lot of moving parts to keeping this team and that C word again, that culture and those
Mm-hmm.
good vibes going in the right direction. Uh, the Sox are hanging their hopes on a lot of what ifs and a lot of hope. We hope to stay healthy. We hope that we have the best season out of Luis Robert, Yohan Moncada, Eloy Jimenez, Andrew Vaughn, Benintendi, all the guys that we're expecting to be the everyday players on this ball club. We're hoping that the culture does change. We're hoping that our pitching staff that we did some bargain hunting, but guys that show promise, we're hoping those guys turn the corner. There's a lot of hopes, and we're hoping for a lot of things to fall into place just to get to that
Yeah.
70-75 win team. You know what I mean? So yeah,
Yeah.
the vibes are great right now, but I wouldn't be shocked if it all collapsed before June.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of perhaps a White Sox fans mentality, and I put myself in that. I'll own that because of what we've gone through the last couple of years. We've played that hope game. That I see this might be number 7 for you. I know someone's been counting in the chats.
Well, it's 7. I think so. Stream Elements, we got to work on that. Stream Elements has got me. It counted the one off screen before the show last week, and is now is basically it's just a running counter now. This is not 7 for this particular show. This is 3 for this show. So I
I
guess we're
might
just
need
going to
to
do a
get
season total at this point.
Yeah,
I don't
I
know.
might need to get a bell or something and just ding it when you light one up. We can do that. I can figure that out. Yeah.
Well,
So
I was just talking about collapsing vibes, and I'm like, you know what? That calls for a heater.
look, I love that it's positive. That's great. It's great that everybody's getting along. I mean, that's a good foundation to start. Can it translate into wins? We're not the only team that is hoping for health and a return to accustomed levels. I mean, it's not like the other teams, not only in our division, but the rest of the league and beyond, are saying, you know what, we're going to stand pat here. Let's let the White Sox catch up. Let's them figure it out so they can be on the same playing field. Everybody's looking to advance it. And they might look at us and say, well, I'm not too concerned about the Sox. And they might just want to stomp on our throats and say, I'm going to have no mercy. towards this team. I'm not even going to give them a chance. So that's where this group, that whatever they do, they buy into Grifol. They, they're playing for, their job. Their things click, whatever that is. This fast mentality, this acronym that Pedro Grifol has unleashed. They buy into it and they can live up to it with performance. And I think there is something about health, like just general, like, can you last as a young pitcher that might not have done this before? Can you log the innings for a full season? Can you hang around? Will the endurance keep up? I don't know. I'm skeptical, but I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, and just for those of you who are not familiar, I mean, you have to be living under a rock at this point to not know what the whole fast thing is for the White Sox. But Pedro came out and said that he's been saying that they want to be fast for months, but we just recently learned that is an acronym for fearless, aggressive, selfless, and what the technically sound was the final one. So yeah, again, sounds great. Pedroisms, I think we're gonna get a pretty good list of Pedroisms going on here.
There's gonna be a lot of jokes like that throughout.
I think he might be the next Yogi Berra. We're gonna get a bunch of Yogiisms out of Pedro.
Yeah, I mean, my thoughts on Pedro.
Why is he still here?
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I don't think he's the right person, but if he's got some people around him that are going to listen to him, if that was the case last year, he had guys that wouldn't buy in. I don't know what it is, but we'll see here. There's a lot of spring left. There really is. One quick thing before we, say goodbyes. I saw this, and I think you did too. The 100 level, which is kind of the coveted level at Sox Park for most people, your lower bowl, has been really off limits for a long period of time to upper deck ticket holders. If you're in the 500 level, there's just, for I would say most of the games, sometimes they ease that restriction, in September when obviously it's spiraled out of control. But they keep that pretty strict, especially on Fridays and Saturdays when there's larger crowds or it's a giveaway. If you've got a 500 ticket, you are not getting down to the lower level. I have not experienced that in any other ballpark, and I've been to, over 20 of them. Traveling around seeing the White Sox play. I'm free to go wherever I want, unless, of course, an area is under construction or something, obviously. Sounds like those restrictions are going to be lifted, Danny, and you might be able to go wherever you want, no matter what ticket you have.
Yeah, I wonder how that makes season ticket holders on the lower level feel. They're paying a premium price for premium seating. I don't really know. I am not currently a season ticket holder. I will say this though. Aside from that, I feel like it's probably one of those things that maybe Jerry and his marketing department feel like it might be a good move for them. Simply because one, when your attendance isn't great, like it wasn't the second half of last season, and hasn't really been the second half for many years before they were in that, and I'm gonna use my air quotes, contention window.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the upper deck isn't really all that busy anyway, so you could probably limit the amount of vendors you have open up there. So that's going to save him some dollars. Let's be honest. Jerry's got less people to pay. Which actually I'm not even sure that's how that works. I think they might be paid by
Well, I mean, I think you're just, the different food options, whatever vendors, like you don't have to fill those spots up there.
right.
You
Customer
don't,
service reps that are going to be farther and fewer between.
There's a souvenir
security.
shop. There's a mini beer cave. there's stuff up there that they try to give you a taste of what the 100 level is, but it's obviously not.
Yeah, they opened those new porches or whatever they want to call those up last season, which,
Yeah,
they were
Miller Lite. I
cool
think it was
for.
a High Life Landing or Blue Moon Landing. There were a couple of those.
Yeah.
So you want to limit the staff that you're going to have up there, and you're going to let just folks go down and get a taste of what they can at the 100 level. I think attendance is going to be extremely low this year.
Yeah.
We always know April, May are tough. Once school gets out, once the summer months pop and it starts getting warm, things pick
Well,
up a
yeah,
little bit, especially on
it's
the
still cold
weekends.
here early on in the season,
It
right?
is.
So,
It is, but I think it's going to be terribly low. I think, it's just a matter of will they tarp off certain sections in the 500 level and just, give it that look like that's not even an option. Try to fill the lower bowl a little bit more for TV. I don't know if that even matters, but and this really is probably going to be odd to any baseball fan from a different team of like, why are you guys talking about this? Because this hasn't happened in a long, long time for Sox fans attending games.
yeah, and I saw something on social media earlier today that, once this was, once this would became a thing, and I'm not sure how much I believe it, but somebody was trying to explain why the Sox had come up with this policy, years ago. And they said something about there were, you know, people from the upper levels coming down to the lower levels and starting fights or having some sort of, you know, uh, some sort of bad, mojo going on. And that was what forced them into kind of splitting, upper
Hmm.
levels from lower levels and having to sit in your assigned seats. And, you had the guest service representatives, checking tickets at the top of the concourse and that whole thing. I'm not sure how that is, but we can't take a couple of isolated incidents and change the way things are done basically throughout baseball, like you're saying, where you're going to multiple stadiums, sometimes a few in a single season, traveling with the ball club or just happen to be somewhere where you're catching a game at a different stadium. And none of those other stadiums are like that. And I think the White Sox are really catching a lot of flack for a lot of the changes they've made to the, the fan base, the experience, the experience. And if this is their only attempt at fixing the fan experience, well, I'm going to say it's a pretty weak attempt. Now, I'm all for it, at the moment. And if they start selling out games and they want to, limit that later on, fine, whatever. If you want to, push it back to like the fifth inning, you can go down, whatever. If the attendance is high and you don't want overcrowding down below, whatever. But right now, I think it's probably, just an attempt to maybe get some more butts in the stadium. And, I hope that they make some other changes along the way. I hope that they do some things to enhance the fan experience and make sure that they have concessions open in the areas where there are fans and hope those fans are hoping for a beer and a dog or a burger or whatever it is. I hope that they fix their security issues to make
Yeah.
things a little bit easier.
Yeah.
Security last year was just super awful in the parking lots for tailgating. They banned the whole thing with the
Hmm.
umbrellas and tents and that whole 9 yards. And they were even like pushing people. It used to be you could gather your group in a circle so that everybody could kind of mingle and talk together. And they were just pushing everybody up against the aisles, right up against your bumpers. I even seen a guy get his barbecue pushed up against his car and it actually splattered some grease in the car and did some damage to his paint because they told him he was too far out in the aisle.
Yeah.
That's something that needs to be cleaned up. I don't know. It felt like
Yeah.
they were just doing
I've
everything
said,
they could to step on their dicks.
I've said to people, it's not a bad stadium. When you
It's
travel
not.
around to other stadiums, I get it. It's old, but it's not a bad stadium. How it's run, it makes it
That's a whole nother.
that's a whole nother story. How it's run from the outside and the inside, getting into the stadium, how things go inside, that stuff you're talking about with security and tailgatings there, how they can't figure out parking, how all that is run. gives it a really bad look. But the actual stadium, I don't mind it. It doesn't have the crazy great, views that everybody gets all hot and bothered about, and all the other stuff
Yeah, but you're there
in
to
the
watch
type
a
of,
baseball game.
yeah, to me,
Do I need to see downtown in the background? I mean, it would have been fantastic if they could have turned that stadium around the other way. But again, you're still 5 miles away from those big buildings anyway. So like, had they turned that stadium around, would it really be all that impressive to begin with anyway? No, but the stadium itself, the changes that they've made since opening that blue concrete bowl
yeah,
back in the day, they've made some fantastic changes.
yeah.
And it is a great stadium. They just need to work on the fan experience and the way they operate at that stadium.
Next time, Danny, we're going to have a bunch of spring training games to talk about. Perhaps we might see some of our starters, or maybe our earmarked starters, get some innings. Right now, it's been a lot of relievers, as Pedro told us before games even started. That's what we've been getting, And by the time we talk next time, we might see some guys that we can say, yeah, I know I'll see that guy at 35th and Shields as we move forward. Always a pleasure, buddy, talking with you.
Yeah, you know what, Nick? I again, this is a great form of therapy to be able to sit here and talk White Sox baseball. I know that Chicago, some folks are saying, this crazy weather in February is no good. I am not going to look a gift horse in the mouth, and it feels like baseball should be played when we get 70-degree weathers, 70-degree day like we do today, and probably after tomorrow being a cold one, it's going to go right back into there for at least another week or so here. I'm looking forward to more baseball,
Yeah, all
and I'm
those high
looking forward to sitting here
school,
talking with you.
college, you're outside practicing now, and you're not stuck in a gym somewhere, hitting off a tee or whatever. You're out there getting some, and you're loving this type of weather, that's for sure. So,
It
I
feels like
want to
baseball
thank
weather to me.
everybody for jumping in the chat, watching, tuning in. You can find the audio absolutely everywhere. Head over to
Yeah,
Future
handful of
Sox.
new subscribers today.
Yeah,
Thank you for
yeah.
that.
Check out all the other great stuff happening with Future Sox. That's futuresox.net. He's Danny Miller. I'm Nick Murawski. Until next time, go Sox.